Alright folks, buckle up. We're about to dive into a chapter of history that's more tragic than a stand-up comedian bombing on open mic night, the Atlantic slave trade. Think centuries of forced migration, unimaginable cruelty, and a legacy that still echoes today. Yeah, not exactly a laughing matter. Imagine a world before airplanes, before Instagram, before even decent coffee. Back then, Europe was just waking up from its medieval nap, eager to explore and exploit new lands. Little did they know this thirst for adventure would have some seriously messed up consequences. See that map? That's not a treasure hunt, folks. That's the path of millions of Africans stolen from their homes and shipped across the Atlantic like cargo. And trust me, the conditions on those ships were worse than coach on a budget airline after a chilly cook-off. So how did this whole mess start? Well, picture this. European colonists arrive in the Americas ready to make some serious cash. Problem is, farming tobacco, sugar, and cotton is hard work, especially in that heat. They needed laborers, and they needed them cheap. Enter the transatlantic slave trade, a system so morally bankrupt it makes payday loans look like acts of charity. African societies had long practiced forms of slavery, often as a consequence of war or death. But the Atlantic slave trade was different. It was on another scale entirely, driven purely by profit and a complete disregard for human life. European traders, with the help of some African rulers, would raid villages, capturing men, women, and children. They were then branded, shackled, and marched to the coast like cattle. And if you think that's rough, just wait till you hear about the Middle Passage.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love for the fakeness. If you wanna play tough and wanna hate this, I'll always show up and make a statement. Everything I do so instinctive and so passionate. Every word I move so descriptive like an adjective. I got a vendetta against people who patented being negative when you should be getting after it. I got facts over tracks, this and that. Spitting slow, spitting fast, I could roast, I could gas. Think I'm okay at last, but I don't know if that can erase all the past. And the pettiness, a reflection of the emptiness. Hilarious, you think you're worth my time, you're delirious. Mysterious, because you hide behind a fake exterior. Inferior, you know I'll always be a bit superior. Get off of me, this ain't no humble brag. I want you to hear words, you can say them back. I want you to feel free from the chains at last, and to believe in what you got, it was built to last, yeah.
Now that I've been put through hell, I never got anyone's help. I had to do it all myself.
I don't ever slow up, no I don't take shit. I got no love.
Whatever means they had, refusing to be completely broken. They clung to their traditions, their music, their stories, keeping alive a flicker of hope in the darkest of times. These cultural practices were a source of strength and a way to preserve their identity. These stories of resilience, of courage in the face of unspeakable cruelty, are a testament to the strength of the human spirit. They remind us of the incredible capacity for endurance and hope. But they also serve as a stark reminder of the horrors inflicted by the slave trade. The atrocities committed during this dark chapter of history must never be forgotten, as we strive to learn from the past and build a more just future. Section 4. Abolition. The beginning of the end, but not the end of the beginning. Fast forward a few centuries and people finally started realizing, hey, maybe enslaving an entire continent isn't such a cool idea. The inhumanity and brutality of the slave trade became impossible to ignore. The voices of the oppressed began to echo louder, demanding freedom and justice. The abolition movement gained momentum, fueled by the tireless efforts of activists, both black and white, who risked their lives to fight for justice. Think Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, and countless others who stood up against the tide of oppression. William Wilberforce, true heroes who dedicated their lives to ending this barbaric system. Their relentless advocacy and unwavering commitment were instrumental in turning the tide. After years of struggle, Britain, followed by other nations, finally abolished the slave trade in the 19th century. This monumental achievement was a significant step forward, but it was far from the end of the story. But let's be clear, folks, this wasn't some act of sudden enlightenment. It was a result of persistent pressure and the undeniable moral and economic arguments against slavery. It was a long, hard-fought battle against deeply entrenched economic and political interests. The abolitionists faced immense opposition from those who benefited from the status quo. And even after slavery was officially abolished, its legacy continued to cast a long shadow. The newly freed individuals faced numerous challenges, from systemic racism to economic disenfranchisement. The fight for equality and justice didn't end with abolition. The struggle continued through the civil rights movements and beyond, as people fought for true equality and recognition of their rights. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter still being written today. The quest for justice and equality is ongoing, and each generation has a role to play in shaping a fairer, more just world. Section 5. The Unpaid Debt, the Long Shadow of Slavery. The end of the transatlantic slave trade didn't magically erase centuries of oppression and injustice. It's like finishing a marathon and then realizing you still have to run a triathlon. The legacy of slavery continued to shape societies on both sides of the Atlantic, from the Jim Crow South to the colonial empires of Europe. The effects of this dark chapter are still felt today. We see it in the systemic racism that persists in many parts of the world. We see it in the economic disparities between different racial groups. And we see it in the ongoing struggle for equality and justice. The fight for true equality is a marathon, not a sprint. And it's a race we must all run together. Section 6. Echoes of the Past. From cotton fields to hip-hop. You might be thinking, Trevor, this is heavy stuff. Can we lighten the mood a bit? Well, the truth is the legacy of the slave trade isn't just about pain and oppression. It's also about resilience, creativity, and the enduring power of the human spirit. Think about it. African culture, despite centuries of attempts to erase it, not only survived but thrived. It evolved and adapted, influencing everything from music and dance to food and language. From the cotton fields to the jazz clubs to the streets of hip-hop, Black culture has enriched the world in countless ways. So yes, we must acknowledge the horrors of the past, but we must also celebrate the strength, resilience, and creativity of those who endured it. Section 7. Never forget. A call to action, because silence ain't golden in this case. The Atlantic slave trade is a stain on human history. It represents one of the darkest chapters in our collective past, where millions of African men, women, and children were forcibly taken from their homeland and subjected to unimaginable horrors. It's a story of greed, cruelty, and unimaginable suffering. Families were torn apart, cultures were decimated, and the human spirit was tested in ways that are hard to fathom. But it's also a story of resistance, resilience, and the ongoing fight for justice. Enslaved people fought back in countless ways, from subtle acts of defiance to full-scale rebellions. We can't change the past, folks. The atrocities committed cannot be undone, and the lives lost cannot be brought back. But we can learn from it. By understanding the depths of this tragedy, we can ensure that such inhumanity is never repeated. We can honor the memory of those who suffered by fighting for a more just and equitable world for all. This means standing up against injustice in all its forms, whether it be racial, economic, or social. We can challenge racism and discrimination wherever we see it. It's not enough to be non-racist. We must be actively anti-racist. And we can use our voices to amplify the stories of those who are still marginalized and oppressed. By sharing their stories, we bring attention to their struggles and help to create a more inclusive society. The fight for equality is not a spectator sport. It demands active participation from all of us, regardless of our background or circumstances. It requires each and every one of us to stand up and be counted. Silence in the face of injustice is complicity, because in the words of the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Let us remember these words and act upon them every day.